A lot of times, the first time you go, if it's a strange environment, there's a lot of activity going on, the person with dementia might be uneasy. We say, go ahead and leave, but come back the next week. And usually it's the third or the fourth time, suddenly they're in.
Welcome to episode 66 of the LoraineCounty.com Insights Podcast. I'm your host, Ed Skimmin. Before we get started, a big thank you to the LoraineCounty.com champion sponsors who make this podcast possible. Emerge Inc., Community Foundation of Lorain County, Lorain County JVS, Lorain County Commissioners, Lorain County Community College, and WOBL Radio. Today, we're talking with Carole Klingler, CEO and founder of Life, a Dementia-Friendly foundation. Join us as Carole talks about the inspiration behind her organization, the unique weekly memory cafes that offer music, art, exercise, and peer support, and the practical techniques like validation therapy that make a meaningful difference for individuals with dementia and their caregivers. She also shares impactful stories, the role of volunteers and funding, and her vision for future growth. Dementia touches many families in Lorain County, often in ways that can feel isolating and overwhelming. Life was created to change that, offering a place where those living with dementia and their caregivers can find understanding, connection, and joy. From lively music sessions to quiet moments of shared art, the organization helps turn challenging days into opportunities for support and hope. Carole deserves a lot of credit. She saw a need and worked tirelessly to create an effective solution. Here is my conversation with Carole Klingler.
My name is Carole Klingler, and my organization is Life, a Dementia-Friendly foundation. I am the CEO and founder of the organization.
Welcome, Carole. Thanks for joining us and sharing your insights. Could you provide an overview of Life and your role with the organization?
Life is actually designed to support people living at home primarily and living with dementia. And our goal is to be able to improve their quality of life by providing resources for them that include exercise, education, lunch, music, and art. And then for the caregiver, the education comes in just in peer support as well as bringing in resources in the community that they might not have known about. So prior to Life's existence, we call ourselves a memory cafe. Memory cafes is a broad term of safe places for people to go with a care partner. So that it's not a place to drop someone off. It's just a safe place for a person to go that has memory loss or dementia where it's welcoming. And they're different throughout the United States. Some are once or twice a month for an hour and a half to 2 hours. Ours is the only one that I know of that meets every week for 4-hour increments, and we have 7 memory cafes that meet weekly for 4-hour increments of time. And during that 4 hours, as I said, they receive live music most of the time, art expression, we call it, lunch, and then exercise and the peer support where we bring in the education for the caregiver. But there's just so much more involved in that. I think we're meeting a greater need in caregiver stress reduction, and also for the person living with dementia to just stay engaged and involved in a place where they feel genuinely welcomed. So they become part of a family in a way. When they come into the memory cafe, they look for their name. We have name tags that we have made up actually through the Lorain County Joint Vocational School. We had the students make our name tags and they come in and find their name tag. And it's kind of our signal too at the end. We collect the name tags. It's our cue that the day is over with. But in between the magic that happens, it's hard to describe in a lot of ways because it's so unique for each individual that comes there. But everyone's greeted and treated with dignity and respect, and they just seem to thrive in that environment.
Where do you hold these at?
We have 5 Lorain County locations that are in churches and 2 in Wayne County that are also in churches. The churches donate the space to us. For example, in Lorain County, on Mondays, we're here in Wellington at a Lutheran church. And on Tuesdays, we're in Elyria at a Nazarene church. And on Wednesdays, we're in Avon Lake at the UCC church and in Amherst at the Baptist church. And on Thursday, we're in a Methodist church. Each of those are donated spaces, which is a huge blessing to us as far as cost and saving money. So our services are free to the people that are attending.
I read on your website about the validation technique. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So back in the early 90s, actually, I ran into Naomi Feil, who was the creator of validation therapy. And for me personally, it was life-changing because as a nurse, is my background, I never really received proper training on how to work with people who had dementia. And Naomi Feil opened my eyes to a whole world of opportunities. Briefly, I would say the validation technique is something we use every day on each other. If someone comes in and wants to vent to you, you might not agree with what they're saying, but you can support them and say, that sounds difficult. It must have been hard. I don't know how you do it. And we say things like that to them, and they leave feeling better. And if we don't listen to them when they're venting, it escalates their behavior or their anxiety, or they say, you don't care either, and they're more frustrated. And that principle, basically, that's my mini version of validation therapy. But just learning the number one thing, if I could give anyone advice about working with somebody with dementia, is feelings are what's really important. They don't grasp a lot of times the ability to foresee things like you have a lot on your plate, you're busy. The task focus is not something that they can comprehend. They just know, are you somebody they can confide in? Are you somebody they can trust? Do you seem friendly? Do you seem to care about them?
Are there other services besides the Memory Cafe that you provide?
We do education in the community. That's primarily our other opportunities. I am one of the coaches with Dementia Friends Ohio. And so that's one service that I offer along with my own educational programs that I've developed. We mainly work with nursing homes, assisted living organizations when we provide that, but sometimes there's other venues in the community that ask for us to present.
When you founded the organization, what was the need in the community that you were responding to, and why did you believe this was the right solution?
As a nurse, I saw a lot of people struggling in the community with their loved ones that had dementia and not knowing what to do and where to go. And I actually started volunteering with the Alzheimer's Association, and I run a support group for a couple of years. And during that time, I would get wonderful resources available in the community that people could go to for programs like music, for example, or exercise. But I found that they were poorly attended for the most part, and I didn't really understand why, because I know they needed the support. So I started asking people, how come you aren't going to this or that? I found that it was putting a burden on the caregiver that they had to decide, is this something worth my time? Should I bring my loved one? Will they cooperate? Is it going to be stressful for them? There was all these burdens that seemed to be there. And I just thought, why don't we bring services to one location, one environment where the person with dementia can adapt to that environment and they can adjust to the environment. And then the care partner can also thrive and have time where they can actually step into another room without distressing their loved one because they're so familiar with us.
Without revealing names, can you share a story that illustrates the difference life can make in a person or family's life?
I have so many stories. It was funny because the one day we walked into the caregiver support room and I had brought someone in that I said, would any of you want to just share what this means to you? And right away, four people shared a story. But one of the ladies there, she said, before I came here, I used to yell at my husband all the time that has dementia. She goes, no, I would scream at him because I thought, why doesn't he understand? Why doesn't he just do what I want him to do? I was so frustrated. And she said, but I started coming here and I started learning that I had the problem, that it was how I was reacting. And she said, my kids started saying, Mom, you're not yelling at Dad like you used to. What's going on? And she said, I found help. And that was a huge thing for me. And then I think at the same time, another person in the room said, with my wife's condition that had Alzheimer's dementia, he said, when I tell my friends and that in the community, my family members, what I'm going through, he said, I get a lot of pity. And then I start feeling sorry for myself. But when I come here, I get practical advice and ideas and support to where I feel like I can go home and live out my wedding vows. We were all like teary eyed just listening to these people giving these off the cuff testimonies. But I think the most simplest one I had was one day a caregiver wrote me a simple note that said, life saved my life. And I think that was one of the most powerful things. That, and also when a person with dementia, I've had several times where they've come up to me and said, thanks for doing this. This is really different. This is really good. The fact that they know it's something different and it's something enjoyable. The other thing I think too is like we ask people when you bring your loved one to the cafe, plan on coming 3 or 4 times before you decide if this is for them or not, because a lot of times the first time you go, if it's a strange environment, there's a lot of activity going on, the person with dementia might be uneasy. And then we say, go ahead and leave, but come back the next week. And usually it's the 3rd or the 4th time, suddenly it's like they're in. So we had a lady that she actually had a brain tumor. and it left her very hearing impaired, but also cognitively impaired. And her husband brought her, and the first time she was just really stressed and wanted to leave, didn't know why she was there. And her daughter came at the time. She was in town but lived out of state. They agreed they would leave and bring her back. The daughter was gone. The second time he brought her, it was similar. She lasted a little bit longer but wanted to leave. The third time, we had a person that was providing music, and she had set her amplifier by that area where this lady was sitting. And she said, "Oh, maybe I should move that." And I said, "No, she's hearing impaired. This is the right spot." The music started playing. She started moving and singing, and I videoed her and sent it to her daughter. I said, "I think we've had a breakthrough." And this lady turned out to just thrive and love the program, became like life of the party. She would participate in every activity, even though it was hard for her to hear. We had a dry erase board and we would communicate with her, and it was just a win-win all the way around. Her husband got support and relief, and he did take care of her up until the last few weeks of life, which was his goal. And then she did go into a nursing facility for about 4 weeks before she passed away.
What role do volunteers play at Life, and how can people get involved in a meaningful way?
If somebody says they want to volunteer, we will find something for them to do. So I'll share, it's been from, we have some of our volunteers are just wonderful supports to the caregivers where they can step in. Maybe if someone seems to have a bad day, they can sit with their loved one, they can engage with them during the activity. There's also some that are just like gophers. They'll go get anything we need, or they'll do the cleanup setup. They'll do all the other activities. But one day this lady said to me, "I would love to volunteer, but I just don't like to leave my home. I like to be home a lot. I don't like to plan on having to get dressed and go out." I said, "Do you want to do mailings?" And to this day, she's doing our mailings, which has been probably about 6 years now. So any mass mailings we have, they come directly from her. So we'll find something.
How is Life funded? What are your different sources of support, and how can people contribute?
We have on our website, we do have a PayPal where someone can be a friend for life, where they could donate every month, or they can donate a one-time donation. We do fundraisers. Actually, tomorrow we're doing a comedy fundraiser in North Ridgeville. All of our tickets are sold out, so I'm happy to say that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And we'll do our own fundraisers here and there. We're involved with Connect to a Cause, which will be happening in September. I think it's the 18th this year. We do receive some grant funding. So Lorain County Community Foundation has been wonderful to support us. And also in Avon Lake, actually, the Good Neighbor Thrift Shop has supported us for the 2 years that we've been there in Avon Lake. They've supported the Avon Lake program 100%.
How do you define success at Life? What are the metrics and outcomes that are important to you and your team?
This year, we actually partnered with Case Western Reserve, and we did some surveys and have gotten some wonderful feedback. Like 90-something% of the caregivers actually feel like this program is making a difference in their life. It's been a really huge feedback. Everything has been very positive, but we plan on doing that annually, and we will be posting those results on our website for the end of the year.
What is something people don't normally know about Life that you'd want them to know?
I think that it's definitely different, and I think coming and seeing it, a lot of times when people hear about it, they can't really visualize what's happening until they come, and then it seems like every time somebody comes, they're like, "I didn't really realize." One person said, "This is like a support group on steroids." And it's true. It's very interactive, but not excessively where people can't relax and enjoy time. We have our quiet times too, but it's just very engaging, and I just think that it can be extremely successful. I wish people that come and feel like their loved one's having a struggle would follow those 3 times, 4 times visit before they make decisions. Sometimes I think people leave prematurely, but I think that's one of the biggest things that people don't realize. The other is that we have just completed strategic planning for our next 3 years, and we did do a prior 3 years. So we really are planning on staying, being part of this community, and continuing to grow. We'd like to see us actually a model for the whole state of Ohio. Not that it has to be our specific program, but this model of meeting every week and having that 4 hours where a person that might have a rough morning can still come and get something out of it. I think that touch base weekly is so critical for both the caregiver and the person with memory loss or dementia.
Let's switch over and talk a little bit about you. What's your background and what led you to doing this?
Well, my background is I am a nurse, and actually It's so funny because I had zero intention of ever working in long-term care. I actually thought I was going to be a pediatric nurse. Never did. I personally feel like God led me on this path. When I started in long-term care and all the opportunities that came along with it, I feel like he put those desires in my heart to do something for people living with dementia. And for years prior to actually starting the program, I talked about it to many people saying, I just feel like we could do a better job supporting people living with dementia. I just feel like we could do a better job. And then I started thinking, because of my connections through long-term care, and I worked in hospice care as I oversaw Lorain County's care for Hospice of the Western Reserve, I felt there was just so much more that could be done, and I knew the right people to help us do that in this community. And so it just kept being something tugging at my heart, and I would tell people and people would give me ideas. And actually it was funny because this person that's a home builder, he said, you need to form a board of directors and become a 501c3.
Hmm.
So I was like, okay, we did. And it was like, that's how things progressed. It was like somebody would say something, we would step out and try it. And here we are today, 10 years later.
In the time you've been with Life, what are you most proud of accomplishing?
I just think all the lives we've touched in general. I know last year we actually counted there was 262 unduplicated people that went through the program. We don't know how many people we actually reach because when that daughter's giving respite to her dad or the mom's getting support, it affects the whole family because when you have dementia, it affects everybody. We don't know how many people we've really impacted, but I know we've impacted a lot. And I think that's the biggest thing is that we've supported these people and many of them to the end of life. We had one person just probably about a year and a half ago or so was at the Memory Cafe that day, went home that night, had a great evening, had ice cream, went to bed and passed away that night. And the daughter was just so appreciative that she was at the cafe her last day.
I know you mentioned the strategic plan going forward. What are your goals? What would you still like to accomplish?
Part of our goals is definitely to have sustainability, of course. Financially, we definitely have to be concerned about being sustainable. And so we're always looking for ways to be able to continue what we're doing. We would like to expand, and I'm very open to if somebody else just wants ideas for a model and they want to do the same thing somewhere else. I just like to see people get that support. So expanding doesn't have to be us personally, but I would just like to see us be able to make an impact throughout the whole state because it's definitely a successful program and we've been able to do it 7 times. It's doable.
Who guides or inspires you the most in the work you do?
Definitely God, of course. I'm always praying and it's just miraculous to me. Just the things that have happened. It's just people say, how are you doing this? And I'm like, seriously, it is not me. It's bigger than me for real. I know not everybody believes that way, but I have to totally say that's what has happened. But besides that, I think so many of the caregivers, I'll get choked up, but it's amazing to me what they do every day. When I first started and I was going to work with some students from LCC, from the RN program, I asked one of the caregivers, I said, I want to teach the students something in particular. Like, is there anything that you would want students to know that maybe I'm not covering or not talking about or whatever? I said, you can think about it. And she said, no, I'll tell you right now. She said, all your great advice and all the wonderful things you do, they're great, they're wonderful, but you're not doing it 24/7. And that's so humbling to me. And I just get so inspired about these caregivers. We have 80 and 90-year-olds taking care of 80 and 90-year-olds. It's so moving to me that they do that.
Outside of work, what are your hobbies and interests and how do they help recharge you?
We have 2 dogs and one of them's a therapy dog and I like to take him out and he does some little tricks and stuff like that. We do visit 2 nursing homes every month and it's just nice to see him. Grandkids, family is primarily the greatest of all, I guess.
Finally, where can people go to get more information about Life and connect with you?
So they can go to dflife.org. So it's D as in dementia, F as in friendly, LIFE.org. Or they can call 440-935-3506. They can also email me. We have 2 different emails. Easiest probably be info@dflife.org. That would be the easiest one to get information or to connect with us.
Thanks, Carole, for joining us, share your insights, and for the work you do.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for listening to the LoraineCounty.com Insights Podcast. Each episode, we share conversations with the people shaping life in Lorain County, from business and government to education, nonprofits, healthcare, and entertainment. Be sure to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. You can also visit LoraineCounty.com to discover local events, volunteer opportunities, and more community resources. If you know someone who's making a difference in Lorain County, send us a note at podcast@LoraineCounty.com. We would love to share their story and insights. Special thanks to our producer, Leah Gerke, and to you for listening. This has been the LoraineCounty.com Insights Podcast, conversations with the people shaping Lorain County.